Good evening and welcome to the video. Sat behind me, as you can see right there, is a 2024 KTM 1390 Super Duke R. I have just done nearly 1600 miles on that thing in 4 days. This thing is my first ever press bike on this channel, and I decided the only way to properly test a bike like this is to do a big trip on it. As per usual, I've chosen the windiest place in the world to do a video. It's literally like a massive open field. I went and picked the bike up at Silverstone, which is where KTM UK are based. I rode from there home. I loaded the bike up with luggage. I rode up to Scotland, did a loop of Glencoe, down through the Lake District, into North Wales, then down through the centre of Wales, all the way down to Cornwall, which for any rider and any bike is still quite a tall ask in 4 days, I think it was. Today is Monday, which is the day that I'm taking the bike back to KTM. I've given it a bit of a clean. I think I'm the only person that's ever cleaned a press bike. I thought I'd bring you guys my thoughts on it after those nearly 1600 miles. So stick around if you're interested. Now, I've ridden one of these before. I've ridden the 1390 Super Duke R Evo, which is the one with electronic suspension. In my video, I almost came to a conclusion that it was too much for the road. It was just batshit mental. The way I was riding it on that blast, it was so insane that I actually started thinking, well, actually, no, I wouldn't have a Super Duke. I started looking at the new 990 Duke instead, various different other bikes, because I just thought the Super Duke's just too much for me now. If I went out on a Sunday on that bike, I would be riding like an arse way more than I should have done, which potentially was the reason that KTM gave me this to do this trip on instead. You can't ride 1500 miles around the country with luggage on and everything like an arse all the time. So it forced me to slow down. It forced me to slow down. It forced me to use my bike as I would use my Super Adventure. Because of that, I've got an entirely new definition and feeling about what this bike is capable of. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly do a little bit of a walk around, show you what I do and don't like about the bike, and then we'll get on the road and I'll talk about how I found it on the trip. The Super Duke in general, I think, is a bike that most people can really appreciate. The bright orange colour is something you either love or hate. I personally really liked the deep kind of off blue and orange that they did in the last generation, the 1290. In this, guys, I would probably have the black with the orange highlights. I'll stick on screen the black colour here. Yeah, look at that, the magic of editing. But yes, I think in general the looks are really quite cool. I would personally want to remove this tail tidy and bring it right up here. Same with the pillion pegs, I'll get rid of those, but they were really handy to strap luggage onto the back. Single sided swinging arm, which is obviously gorgeous. The fact that there's a number of catalytic converters in this thing, I think they've done a really good job of hiding it. I really love this sweeping pipe all the way around. Obviously this model has the wings built in. Wings are a little bit of a thing on bikes at the moment. To most people, they're completely and utterly pointless. I don't mind when they're built into the body. I hate it when they're just stuck on the side. The headlight is a very subjective one, I'm well aware, but I think in general it looks really fresh. It's ugly, I get that. However, I think it looks quite menacing. It gives it a recognisable face. And I did clean this earlier, and I thought these things would be the worst bug death trap in the world. Like, you'd have to get a detailing brush in there to try and clean them out. There wasn't a single bug in either of those, and I've gone through the midgy hell, which is Scotland. The one thing I thought could have been better on the front was the indicator placement. On the 990 Duke, they are, instead of being up here, they're kind of here. I'll put it on screen here some way what the 990 looks like so you can see. Although it is kind of hidden within the handlebar, which I quite like, not overly sold on that sort of look of that. There are a few little design tweak things that I would have done, like this indicator here. If you're going over bumpy road, taps on the front brake. Not enough that it will constantly do damage, but if you're constantly riding bumpy roads, that might start to ding away at your brake. The only other thing I don't like about the handlebars / the front of the bike is these. They're fine and they don't look cheap or anything. The only thing that I don't like about them is the mounts for them seem to be really wobbly. Like, it just wobbles everywhere. And when you're going down the road, this is just doing this. This is shaking around so much that it looks like it's boiling. The arms are obviously relatively thin anyway, but yeah, just they wobble around a lot. As for the TFT, as for the switchgear and everything, it's all very, well, it's essentially the same as I've got on the Super Adventure, so this is very, very much homely for me. The suspension has been very, very supportive so far. I did end up tweaking the front up a little bit because I found the front end a little bit bouncy. That has been very, very supportive. I have no problems with suspension at all. Corners lovely, is planted everywhere as you'd expect. But, and there is a big but, and I cannot lie, lol. I've ridden Super Dukes many, many a time. I know they are monstrous. I know they are mental things. But setting off on a 1,500 mile odd journey, I fully expected to be in crippling pain. I was expecting to be a shell of a man when I got home. On the motorway, I was getting 60 odd mpg, miles per UK gallon, should I say. Even when I was sitting at normal motorway cruising speeds, I was still getting high 50s. Over 200 miles to a tank, an 18 litre tank I think it is, or an 18.5 litre tank. The seating position was very comfy and I could sit up quite nicely. I didn't feel like I had to lean or hunch over or anything like that. This seat is wafer thin, or at least it looks like it's wafer thin. I had no problems with it. The only thing that started aching was my legs. My legs ache on my Super Adventure after a couple of hours. And there was no point where I got on the bike and went, oh, this is going to hurt for another couple of hours. Again, I ride bikes a lot, so I am sort of bike fit. But if I did that exact same trip on my Super Adventure, I'd be in exactly the same position. On 190 brake horsepower, hyper naked, whatever you want to call it. It's baffled me. It's really, like, I'm really perplexed because I've ridden adventure bikes for years. And I've always thought adventure bikes are the only thing you can actually be comfortable on a trip. If you said to me, ride this down to the south of France, I would do it, which has then got the cogs turning, as you'd expect. Mad for Bikes sent me a blow-up seat thing, like a Airhawk type thing. I took it with me, didn't need it. So if you aren't already aware, single-sided swinging arm bike means you've only got, this is the swinging arm, and on this side, there is the swinging arm. But to adjust that, there is a bolt there, which you undo. I don't know whether you can see, but here, there is a notching system, almost like your suspension is. So you get a C-spanner on there and literally just do that and it tightens the chain up, all in line, everything like that. Do that bolt back up and torque it up, done. So that was just another thing where I was going, might be quite easy to own this bike. We are now on the helmet, cam and microphone. So it might sound a bit different, but hopefully it won't be as windy. Let's go. 1900, I picked this bike up on 300 and something miles, and it's going to go back with about 2,000 miles on. Sorry KTM, sorry. This is a very, very bumpy road, and this suspension just really handles it all so well. Now obviously everyone knows like an LC8 engine is a very, very good engine, but the thing I really like about it is fourth gear. There you go, I'm doing 30 mile an hour in fourth gear and it's not hunting. If I want to roll on, it's just there. If you're on a nice sweeping road and you're just wanting to stick in one gear, you can do 30 mile an hour in fourth gear, but you can also do triple digits in fourth gear, I've heard. It's just got torque everywhere. Do you reckon this guy's name's Tom? Hello, my name's Tom. The quick shifter on this is pretty damn smooth. The only time it gets a bit clunky is when you haven't adjusted the chain for 1,500 miles. I'm around 5'9", 31, 32 inch inseam. I can't get my feet flat on the floor. I can get them both firmly down. And my reaches, I mean, when I'm sitting up like this, yes, I've got a full reach on my arms, but if I sit how you're meant to sit on the bike, which is slightly further forward, I've got a nice bend in my arm, so there's no stiffness around you. One thing I am quite surprised at is that my my Super Adventure does power wheelie in third more than this will. Apart from when you're in second, for obvious reasons, you do have to actually kind of try to get the wheel to come up in third gear. Not that I would be doing that on a public road in the UK, because I wouldn't do that at all. I wouldn't even dream of doing that. But let me show you. And then obviously, because it's the Super Duke and because it is so nimble, so agile, if you need to nip past and then nip back in, you can change direction of the bike really quite quickly. Same thing with missing a pothole. If there was a pothole in front of me, I'd just literally do that and I can move and get out the way of it very, very quickly. Vibrations are very, very personal to you, whether you find a bike vibey or not, whether you can feel the good vibrations. I can understand where you would feel the vibrations, but again, it's a 1345cc V-twin. You're gonna get some vibrations. Having said that, KTM have done a very, very good job of muting them a bit. Sorry, this road's quite good, I'm just going to enjoy it. Just that punch out of a corner, it's so good, and then you lean in, there's no problem with that. Bloody Nora. Oh, is that a Vauxhall Monaro? Bloody hell, don't see those around very much. Well, over here you don't anyway. I think they're quite a common place in the Oz, in the US of Oz. While we're on the motorway, talking about wind noise and wind, because obviously there's nothing in front of me. The air's very clean off of the bike. The only thing, I'm getting a bit of a not buffeting, but there's a bit more noise off my left ear. But that's because I've got this camera on and I'm just getting a kick off that. If it's anything to go by with my Super Adventure, these will be causing some form of turbulence. But as I mentioned earlier, look how much that is rattling around. It needs a slightly stiffer mount. These bar end weights, they look like powder coated plastic, but they're also rubber mounted, so they just, like, I reckon I could snap that off if I tried. They don't wobble or anything while you're riding along, but it's just one thing that makes it feel a little cheap there. And then the only actual thing that I don't like about this bike, the only actual negative that annoys me, is the cruise control. The cruise control on my KTM is completely fine. If I say I'm doing 65, set the cruise control at 70, the bike will accelerate to 70 miles an hour and then stop. This, I'm doing 70 and I accelerate past 70 to overtake a car, and then it comes back down to 70. It drops massively. So I'm doing an indicated 75. If I accelerate and then I let off, 73 down to 72, 73, and then comes back up to 76. And look, this bus is going to move over. I'll jump the cruise back up to 75. Nothing. Slowly. 72, still not at 75. Still not at 75. Still not at 75. 75, there you go. 76. So why has it gone up to 76? That will likely get better with an update. I assume it's just that the bike needs tweaking on how it actually engages and disengages the throttle. So I've just dropped that down to 69, 66, 65, 67, 67, still not 69, 68, 60, 69, there you go. See what I mean? It thinks too much about it, and I don't know why. The thing with this bike is I'm really nitpicking. Like, I'm really nitpicking. I mean, it's not actually a problem, is it? And the indicators being where they are, not actually a problem, is it? And this wobbling around is not really a problem, is it? But it's not horrendous, it's just a bit annoying. As for doing the 1500 miles, I've had zero issues. It started every morning. Someone will probably bang on about it in the comments because they've had a problem, and it'll be like a, man, well, you didn't talk about this problem. I'm like, well, okay, well, I haven't had that problem. With pretty much all of these new bikes, if you don't give them time to do their sort of diagnostic cycle before you press the start button, it will kick off about it. One morning I wasn't particularly awake because I hadn't had breakfast yet, hadn't had a coffee yet. As I pulled off, I stalled it. When I started the bike again, I was still in gear. The bike recognises there's a problem because you're still in gear and there's some resistance on the motor turning the bike over. It thinks there's an issue. I got a few warnings pop up, which was a brake light warning and a something else warning. I can't remember what it was, DRL warning or something like that. But you can still ride the bike completely fine. Next time I was stopped at a traffic light, I turned the bike off, turned it back on, it started, no problem at all. So yeah, really not a problem. It's just something that will happen. Apart from that, the bike's been faultless. It's, like I said, started every morning, ridden all day every day, turned off, left overnight in a cold, wet condition, and then restarted in the morning. The headlights aren't fantastic for being seen in like conditions like this. I think it's more the height more than anything. On the Super Adventure I've obviously got quite a high up headlight, but you're never going to get that on anything low down like this. This is completely legal in the UK, by the way, before someone kicks off. There's a load of Americans at the moment saying stuff on my monkey video, like they're surprised how heavy the chain is. And I was like, what the f*** are you on about? What do you mean the chain is heavy? And it's because I've said it cost me £90, and they're thinking the chain weighs £90. No, of course it doesn't weigh £90. Oh my god, the bike weighs £4,000. My Jeep doesn't weigh that. Anyway, what was I saying? Headlights, yeah. At night, the headlights are very bright. They're obviously these projector headlights, so you get a lovely straight beam pattern. The headlight in general at night is really good. Main beam is surprisingly good as well. Like very, very good. I've got a bit of footage where hopefully you can see it, but it's a GoPro / DJI, so there's a high chance that you won't be able to see it. Well, I'm sure I read somewhere that these have 9,000 mile service intervals, which is the same as the Super Adventure, which would make sense. That's massive mileage to be able to do between services, which is fantastic for a bike like these, because these are normally, like, this kind of bike is normally 4,000 or 6,000 mile service intervals. So if that is the case, you're looking at around £300-ish. The valve clearance service was £780. There's obviously quite a lot more around the Super Adventure engine than there is on this, so I assume this probably will be cheaper because there's not as many hours that go into it. I was in Scotland, stuck behind a camper van doing 35 mile an hour, and there was 6 cars behind it, and I took the lot of them very, very easily. And also I've got the confidence in the brakes that if someone did decide they wanted to overtake as well, I could just dab on the brakes and I'd be fine. Like, they stop you so quickly, these things. Bloody hell, what's going on there? 4 of them. I'll make sure I accelerate really hard up here then. Nora! I want one. I want one not because it's a Super Duke and it's an utter knob machine. It's the Super Duke and it's an utter knob machine, but it's also doing everything my Super Adventure would do. Everything a GS would do, everything a V-Strom would do, everything a Tiger would do. Like, it's doing all of that. I'm in a good level of comfort, and I don't really want to give it back to KTM, if I'm completely honest. But maybe they can do me a banging deal on one. I should probably put some more fuel in it rather than giving it back to them with 60 miles. Moving it around's quite easy as well, if I'm honest. Please don't make me take my helmet off. If you make me take my helmet off, I will go somewhere else. KTM, you got way more fuel than you should have done, but thanks for letting me have the bike. I think I'm the only person to ever return a press bike with basically a full tank of fuel and clean. I mean, I'm sorry, look at that thing. God, it looks good. Oh, God, that is such a sexy bike. Upside down. Boy, you turn me inside out. Round, upside down, you turn me. There you go. So feet are down on both sides, but not all the way down. Oh, the other thing that's really good is look how quick it recognises your fuel. Like literally immediately. It says I've got 220 mile range. Upside down, you turn me. You love. Reset that trip 1. Pop, 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 pop. Oh, there's also a lean angle sensor on there. It's enough that it holds a lean angle for a couple of seconds, I think it does. I want to give more negative feedback because I know I'm pro KTM and I know I'm pro Super Duke, Super Adventure, Super Duke GT or whatever, and I know a lot of people are going to be watching this going, yeah, but he loves KTMs, of course he's going to say good things about it. But again, I fully expected me to be in crippling pain by the time I was done on this, and I'm just not. Been sitting at this 70-ish
and my instantaneous MPG is 57. Basically 60 MPG, 200 mile range, like it's currently saying 215 mile range, and if I was spanking the living shit out of it, it wouldn't be 200 miles, it would be more like 160. What more do you need? You've got 190 horsepower, it's comfortable, it's been reliable. My dad was saying to me the other night, he was like, you're actually having to try to think about this, aren't you? I'm struggling to think of negatives. My mum's not really someone that likes the look of motorbikes, but she was sat there going, actually it's really nice, isn't it? I like it. My dad really likes it, I really like it, Emma really likes it, just everyone likes it. It does everything I want it to. On a genuine note, this could be a replacement for the Super Adventure, or at least for what that Super Adventure does in my life. Upside down, flick, flick, whop up. Right everybody, I'm back at Silverstone to drop this bike off. Thank you very, very much for watching, and I will see you in next week's video. Anyway, have a lovely evening. It's really windy because I've got my visor open, and see you in next week's video. Bye! Oh, I need one of these things. I need one of these things.